out of here, you worthless daughter-in-law! Why are you still living in our house? Yeah, you're just in the way. Go back to your parents' house, you ugly woman. After my husband passed away, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law tried to kick me out of the family home. What did I do to deserve this? I've been contributing $2,000 every month to the household. Fine, if you feel that way, I'll leave. Don't blame me for what happens next. My name is Maya. I'm 33 years old. I met my husband Tom at the bank where we both worked, and we got married. We both loved going out for drinks, and our dream was to open a small restaurant someday. For now, we're saving up for that dream, living with my mother-in-law in the family home. Maya, thank you for everything. After your father-in-law passed and Tom's at work, I've been so lonely during the day. Having you here to talk to has been such a blessing. Mother-in-law said with a warm smile. My father-in-law passed away before Tom and I got married. Mother-in-law and father-in-law were known to be a very loving couple. She was devastated when he died. She warmly welcomed me into the family home when Tom and I decided to live with her. The family home has a substantial amount of assets, so money was never an issue. No bullying, no financial worries. Given the comfortable life they provided, Tom and I decided to contribute an extra $2,000 monthly to the household. But there was one small issue. Tom's sister, Evie, who had moved to another state a few years ago. Mom, can you help me out with this month's expenses? I really shouldn't, but I'll have to ask Tom. Mother-in-law looked troubled by my sister-in-law's request. Yes, sister-in-law often came home with various reasons to ask for money. From her daughter's tuition to living expenses. Isn't Evie's husband working for a big company? Are they really struggling that much? What's it to you? Just because I moved out doesn't mean I can't ask my family for help. I didn't mean it like that. From the looks of it, sister-in-law wasn't struggling financially. Why did she rely so much on the family's money? I genuinely asked, but sister-in-law coldly responded. That's when Tom stepped in. Hey, are you asking Mom for money again? Big brother. What happened to the inheritance Dad left you? Enough! I don't need this. Sister-in-law shouted and stormed out. Please, just lend Evie some money. Mom, you're too soft. Remember when she lied about her daughter's English classes and used the money for a trip? I can't trust her. Mother-in-law, who always doted on sister-in-law, pleaded with Tom, but he firmly refused. Apparently, mother-in-law used to give sister-in-law a lot of money when father-in-law was alive, and he often scolded her for it. Since then, father-in-law managed the finances to ensure sister-in-law didn't get more than necessary. Now, Tom and I manage the family finances. We're close to saving up the $120,000 we need to start our restaurant. We'd often get excited talking about the dishes we'd serve and the restaurant's design. But then, tragedy struck. What? Tom collapsed? It happened on a weekend afternoon. I got a call from Tom's office where he was working overtime. When I was taken to the hospital, I was shocked by what the doctors told me. At the hospital, the doctor told me Tom had suffered a subarachnoid hemorrhage. Thankfully, he survived, but he was in a critical condition. Even in that state, Tom tried his best to talk to me. Maya, I'm sorry. It looks like our dream of a small restaurant won't come true. What are you talking about, Tom? Let's go back and start our business. We've saved enough money. Holding my increasingly frail husband's hand tightly, I tried my best to encourage him. There's something I want to tell you while I still can. What? What is it? The story he shared was beyond my wildest expectations. A few days after that conversation, Tom passed away. After the wake and funeral, I finally had a moment to reflect on my memories with Tom. During this time, my mother-in-law made a suggestion. Maya, you can move out of this house, live your life and find happiness. My mother-in-law's proposal was out of concern for me. Honestly, with Tom gone, there was no obligation for me to live with mother-in-law. But leaving mother-in-law alone in such a big house worried me. Mother-in-law has been so down since Tom passed away. If I leave, she might follow him. Imagining the worst, I decided to continue living with mother-in-law. Thus, our life together began. At first, the absence of Tom was palpable, but as days turned into weeks, we both found peace. I consistently contributed $2,000 a month for living expenses. With Tom's pension, it was more than enough for both of us. Thanks to this, we barely touched the family's assets. Those assets were saved for any unforeseen circumstances concerning mother-in-law. Maya, this house is filled with memories of Tom and his father. I don't want to leave. I hope we can continue living together. Mother-in-law said with a warm smile. Our life was peaceful and modest. I thought it would continue like this until that day. Maya, can we put Mom in a care facility while she's still healthy? This call came a few months after I started living with mother-in-law. It was from my sister-in-law, Evie. This was our first conversation since Tom's funeral. When I asked what she wanted, Evie said, "The facility has a great reputation and rarely has vacancies. Maybe now's the time." It was sister-in-law's suggestion to put mother-in-law in a nursing home while she was still healthy. I can't proceed with this without mother-in-law's consent. And I can't just hand over the money Tom and I worked so hard to save. If you're serious, come here and discuss it. Angry, Maya hung up, hoping I would back off. But things didn't go as smoothly as I hoped. One day, I received a sudden business trip request from my company. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry, but I'll be away for a few days. Please call me if anything comes up. Thank you, Maya. Don't worry about me, just focus on your work. Recently, I had a nagging feeling that my sister-in-law, Evie, was targeting my mother-in-law's house. But with work calling, I had to push those feelings aside and head out on a business trip. Little did I know what was to come. The day I returned from my trip, I opened the front door to find unfamiliar women's shoes. Evie, welcome back from work. The woman who greeted me from the living room was none other than Evie. What brings you here so suddenly? Well, I wanted to discuss something important. I walked into the living room, suspicious of Evie's flattery, only to find my mother-in-law glaring at me. I took a seat trying to understand the tension. Maya, is it true you're trying to put me in a care facility? What? What are you talking about? My mother-in-law asked me this at the beginning of the conversation. I have doubts about that question. I came to ask her directly today. I can't believe you'd force such a decision. Evie said, taking my mother-in-law's hand. My mind went blank. Why is this being pinned on me? It was Evie's idea. As I sat in shock, my mother-in-law continued her accusations. I told you I won't leave this house, and yet you're trying to kick me out, you traitor. The loving gaze I once knew was gone. I was at a loss for words, realizing she fully trusted Evie now. It's strange to leave the household finances to someone else. Evie will be living here now. We don't need you anymore. As my mother-in-law guarded herself, Evie smirked. Oh, by the way, that branded necklace in your room, I sold it for a pretty penny. Stunned, I rushed to my room, finding traces of someone rummaging through my things. The necklace? Could it be? Maya, was that necklace so important? It was just a piece of jewelry. Saying that, my sister-in-law entered the room with a smile. It was a gift from my late husband. How could you sell it? Tears welled up in my eyes. Well, it brought in money. I'm sure your brother would be happy. I couldn't forgive her. She sold a cherished memory of my late husband. From that day, I vowed to get back at Evie. The next day, I packed my belongings, personal items, my husband's keepsakes, photos. With my bags ready, I left the house. At the door, a gleeful Evie said, I'm sorry your mother-in-law isn't here to see you off. She doesn't want to see your face anymore. I see. Please take care of her. With a triumphant smile, Evie watched as I left the house for good. A few months after settling into the new place, I got an unexpected call from my in-laws. You took money without asking, didn't you? How could you be so heartless? You're the worst. What? I have no idea what you're talking about. What happened? Sister-in-law shouted even louder, pressing for answers. From what I gathered, the bank account balance, which I used to manage, was low, and they couldn't cover basic bills like water. For some reason, they thought I had taken the money. Just come over here now. Before I could respond, sister-in-law hung up with a slam. I couldn't help but grimace at the audacity. Honestly, after what they did, I had no obligation to go, but this might be the perfect chance to expose the truth. With that thought, I called someone and drove to my in-laws' house. A few hours later, you finally made it. Come in. Sister-in-law and mother-in-law were seated, looking ready to blame me for everything. Look at this. The bank statement showed a negative balance. I don't know how much you've been spending, but maybe you overspent and that's why there wasn't enough? What? You're blaming us? Mom said our spending hasn't changed since you left. Well, maybe it's because I was depositing $2,000 a month, right there. So the only money left is the inheritance from father-in-law. What? When I left, there was nearly $20,000 in that account. Sister-in-law stared at the bank book in shock. My mother-in-law quickly turned to sister-in-law. Evie, what did you do? Did you buy something? You've been giving money to that guy you met on that dating app, haven't you? I interjected, cutting off their conversation. Do you have any proof? Here's your proof. I presented a photo of Evie with a flashy young man. Mother-in-law stared at the photo speechless. How did you? My husband had it. He thought it might come in handy someday. Turns out my late husband had been investigating sister-in-law's financial habits for a while. He even took the photo himself. Their relationship seemed to have been going on for some time. Why, Tom never mentioned. Mother-in-law murmured in shock. He didn't want to worry you. He hoped he could convince Evie to change on his own, though that wish never came true. I can't believe. Mother-in-law's face turned pale, and she turned to sister-in-law. What's going on, Evie? The only inheritance left from Dad is in this account. Then the doorbell rang. Oh, looks like they're here. I'll get the door. The others looked at me, puzzled. I led the visitor into the living room. What? Owen! Evie, what have you done? The man I brought in was Owen, sister-in-law's husband. Maya called me over, said there was something important. What's this photo about? Owen glanced at the photo, then questioned sister-in-law. What? This is photoshopped. I would never do something like this. Really? Like when you lied about needing money for our daughter's education?
I heard everything thanks to Maya's call.
Owen held up his phone. Yes, he had been listening to our conversation.
If Maya hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known about your actions so soon.
I reached out to Owen a few days after leaving my in-laws' house. Owen, who had been suspicious of sister-in-law's spending habits, was more than willing to discuss her with me. I showed him a photo and revealed everything sister-in-law had done to me.
After hearing from Maya, I looked into you. You were even having an affair with the guy you met from a dating app. I overlooked some things, thinking maybe you were stressed from parenting. But an affair? I can't deal with you anymore. Let's get a divorce.
I don't want that. Please, think it over. Sister-in-law sat down, tears streaming down her face. Later, Owen told me they had divorced. During the divorce, their daughter said,
I want to be with Daddy. Mommy always goes out with men and doesn't make me dinner. I don't like it.
This revealed sister-in-law's neglect towards her daughter. Owen got custody. Apparently, sister-in-law had mostly abandoned her daughter to meet the man from the dating app. The money she gave him and the luxury items she bought for herself were all borrowed from Owen and the in-laws. The borrowed amount kept increasing over the years, becoming an unmanageable debt. I decided to cut ties with them for good. A few months later, I opened a small restaurant. Of course, with the startup money from my husband. Thankfully, the old-fashioned small restaurant, which was my late husband's dream, is thriving. I've been so busy that I almost forgot about sister-in-law and her antics. But then, one day, welcome to mother-in-law? To my surprise, an unexpected guest visited my restaurant just after opening in the evening. It was mother-in-law, looking a bit worn out.
Maya, I'm truly sorry. I was deceived by Evie and treated you so poorly.
Mother-in-law, please lift your head. Where are you staying now? She slowly began to share her story. She had sold her house to pay off sister-in-law's debts. She was about to move to an apartment in another state with sister-in-law. She wanted to apologize to me before leaving the area. The once prickly mother-in-law was nowhere to be seen. She seemed genuinely remorseful. Seeing her like this, I made an offer. Mother-in-law, would you like to live with me?
What? Why would you offer that? After everything I said to you?
Yes, mother-in-law had said some hurtful things to me, but she was just deceived by sister-in-law. It wouldn't be right for her to spend her golden years with a debt-ridden daughter. I'm sure her late husband, father-in-law, wouldn't want that either. If you feel you've wronged me, could you help me out? I've been looking for some extra hands. And so, mother-in-law and I decided to start fresh. There might be challenges ahead, but I believe father-in-law and my late husband are watching over us. With that faith, we began our journey towards a new future.